Bruce Feldman and Pete Thamel both reporting at this hour on Sunday night. At long last, Brent Venables and Oklahoma have finalized a deal. Brent Venables, longtime Clemson defensive coordinator, will become Oklahoma's new head coach. College football coaching searches are just phenomenal. They're great. I wouldn't have it any other way. This coaching search feels like it's been going on a long time. It's only been a week since Lincoln Riley said, bye, I'm going to Baton Rouge. Scratch that, I'm going to Los Angeles. And the coaching search, it barely had time to get off the ground, but yet you've had 37 updates from all the different websites that cover Oklahoma, and you've had hundreds or to thousands in those Twitter spaces that even got my attention talking about this. But finally now we know it's going to be Brent Venables. Now here's what I love about coaching searches. Let me give you a little inside baseball or inside football if it were. In the world of college football coaching searches, you're looking for one of three telltale signs that you got your guy. One of those telltale signs could be a screenshot from flightaware.com. The second could be inside information from a cousin's buddy who's a real estate agent in the potential market that the coach is moving to, at which point you will be told the head coach's wife is already there looking at apartments or maybe even looking at houses. But that's not what we got today. I got to give TigerNet credit. They got the scoop finally, hiding in some form of bush or tree. They got us the critical third potential piece of evidence, and that is a sketchy photo from someone's backyard on their lake house with a moving dumpster already on the driveway. That is Joe Castiglione, who is the AD at Oklahoma, and that is Brent Venables, and they're wearing suits. And you know good and well, no one wears suits to go eat porridge or talk about what they're going to do for Christmas. They are negotiating a contract. And as it turns out, that contract has been finalized, again, according to Pete Thamel and Bruce Feldman. If this is true, which we assume it is now, that means Oklahoma has accomplished two major goals. I love the picture, by the way. I would love to do the rest of the show. You got Castiglione, you got Brent Venables, and a giant red dumpster. I'm trying to paint the picture for those of you listening on podcast. So they're accomplishing, I think, two of their major goals here. The first is they got someone who is intimately familiar with Oklahoma. Brent Venables was at Oklahoma for a long time before he ended up going to Clemson. The second box I think they checked, which may take you by surprise, is I think they got a guy with adequate experience. Now, you may look at that and you may say, what are you talking about? He hadn't been a head coach. He doesn't have experience. That's true. He has been around one of the best, though, in Dabo Swinney. And Brent Venables has himself sort of been the face of that program to a degree. I know it's different. I know it's different coordinating a defense as opposed to running a program. I'm not saying he's fully up to speed and well-versed on every intricate detail that it takes to run an organization, but I also don't think he's totally green. I think he's been able to observe. I think he's probably learned a lot. So you combine that with the familiarity. I think in those categories, it's a good match. I still have question about just the fit overall. Fit has been the word of the month, but they do have reasons to have some question, or at least I do. I say they may have all their questions answered, but recruiting-wise, you don't know until you know, really. It's different when you go into a living room and you got a tiger paw on your polo, but you're representing someone else's program versus going in there with that OU on your polo, but you're representing your program. They're no longer going to play for Dabo Swinney and you. They're coming to play for you. So we sit here and it kind of remains to be seen how Brent Venables will do from a recruiting aspect. Leading an organization, you can't know until you know. You know how he leads a defense. You know the feedback and the testimonials, but we've never seen him lead an entire organization. And you can't know that. That's the risk you take. They are willing to accept that risk at Oklahoma. The third and the most important, I say this anytime we're bringing a guy up from G5 like Billy Napier to Florida, or in this case, we're bringing a guy who was a coordinator into the head coach's chair. I don't give it a grade. I don't even formulate a full opinion until I see the staff. I mean, we've got a lot of rumors out there right now about potentially Jeff Lebby at Ole Miss, who, according to some, is the straw that has stirred the drink there this year offensively. Maybe he goes to Norman as new OC. Joe Brady got the can today at the Carolina Panthers. And so maybe him. I think that may be a little more far-fetched than you think. But Jeff Lebby's been a hot name there. There are some people who already think that's done. Again, that could change by the time we go off air. Staff is critical. And not just assistants and on-field guys. You got to get your director of player personnel in there. You got to get an entire sports science team in there. It is critical that Brent Venables nails the sports science and nutrition aspect of his program. Some of this stuff's boring to talk about, and you never see these people. I can assure you. I was on the field last night after Bama beat Georgia, and a lot of those names and faces that you may not know but are critical to making that program run, that were critical to some of those players even being able to get on the field last night, you got to have them. If you're going to compete with the Alabamas and Georgias, you got to have personnel, and you got to have a massive army of a staff like they have. And to do that, you got to know how to build it, and you've also got to know who to go after. You got to have their trust, too. Here's the third part that would concern me about any new hire. This is not even Brent Venables. Think about how much the landscape's changing right now. Think about what you have to have in-house when it comes to NIL, but also what you have to have in-house when it comes to the transfer portal. You've got coaching staffs now that have college scouting departments. That didn't exist 5 years ago. By that, I mean there are people in your organization whose specific job it is to be scouting college players, because at any time they could go in the portal, and it's no different than NFL free agency. Well, you didn't used to have that, and now you do have to have it. Listen, Venables just left Clemson. Dabo Swinney's struggling to adjust on this. And Dabo's been at it for a long time and won a couple of titles. This stuff's not easy. So I think building a program now is probably harder than it's ever been, just because there are more layers that you have to build. But I'll say this now, if a lot of folks out there in Oklahoma are using the H word, hate towards Lincoln Riley. I'm sure you guys don't mean it, but for argument's sake, if you do hate Lincoln Riley, you'll probably love Brent Venables, because they are total opposites, at least from a personality and an approach to life standpoint. They are total opposites. I was over on OU Insider today, and I saw probably my favorite quote of the month so far. And that quote was from Iowa Sooner 387. And he said, Lincoln Riley was like the Corvette you can't drive in the winter. Well, I can assure you, Brent Venables has chains on the tires. He's got four-wheel drive, and not the optional kind that you have to shift into and come to a complete stop. He can drive around in the winter. He's a guy that's very no-nonsense, probably not going to be the most friendly if you run into him in a coffee shop, probably get someone to go get his coffee for him. But he has been around winners. They are betting that he knows how to win. I'll be interested in watching this. I just think it's refreshing to see defensive names getting shots at big head coaching positions in a conference that just a few years ago people thought would never be the case anymore. No one's ever going to hire a defensive guy out here anymore. Well, the names that were bantied around a lot for this job were Dan Lanning, head coach or DC at Georgia, and Brent Venables, DC at Clemson. So because of the nature of Brent Venables, the OC hire there is going to be very, very pivotal.